My front gate was open when I know for a fact I had locked it that morning. That was the first sign this wasn't going to be another annoying letter, another petty warning, another smug notice taped to my mailbox by people who thought clipboards gave them power. No, this time they had come onto my land, and parked beside my barn was a white SUV with the logo of the Oak Hollow Estates Homeowners Association printed across the door. A woman in a cream-colored blazer stood with her heels planted in my gravel drive like she owned the place. She wasn't alone. 2 board members stood behind her, both carrying folders, both looking uncomfortable, both wearing the expression of people who knew they were somewhere they should not be. She smiled when she saw me walking back from the shed. "Mr. Callahan," she said, sweet as spoiled syrup, "I'm glad you're finally here. We need to discuss your non-compliance." That word, non-compliance, as if I were some delinquent tenant, as if this land hadn't been in my family since before her precious subdivision even existed. If you enjoy stories where arrogant people pick the wrong fight and regret it badly, go ahead and subscribe right now, because this one only gets crazier from here. I set my toolbox down and looked at her, then at the tire tracks pressed into my grass. "You're trespassing," I said. Her smile didn't move. "Actually, according to the master plat and the expanded association authority recorded after Phase 3, your parcel is considered part of the Oak Hollow residential footprint." I stared at her for a second. Then I laughed. Not because it was funny, because it was stupid. She didn't like that. Her jaw tightened, but she kept her voice smooth. "You can laugh, Mr. Callahan, but the situation is very serious. You've ignored 6 notices, failed to pay association dues, refused landscaping compliance, and continued storing an inoperable vehicle in public sight. At this point, your balance, including back fees, fines, and legal penalties, is just over $87,000. She said it like she was reading a weather report. $87,000 for weeds, an old truck, and a property I never agreed to place under their control. Behind me sat my grandfather's 1961 Chevy pickup, half restored, under a canvas awning beside the barn. Next to it, my late wife's garden stretched along the stone path she had laid by hand 20 years ago. Beyond that, the orchard my father planted, the fence posts my grandfather set, the farmhouse my great-grandmother lived and died in. This wasn't just land, it was memory made visible. "And if I don't pay?" I asked. The woman opened her folder and pulled out a typed document. "Then the association will move forward with a lien and petition the court for foreclosure action." She paused there, probably waiting for fear to show on my face. It didn't. "My name," she said, lifting her chin, "is Denise Porter. I'm the president of Oak Hollow Estates, and whether you like it or not, your little island in the middle of our neighborhood is over." I looked at the paper in her hand, then at the board members behind her. One avoided my eyes. The other gave me the smallest, almost apologetic shrug. That told me everything. This wasn't law. This was bullying dressed up in legal language, and Denise Porter had no idea whose land she was standing on. I'm 70 years old. My knees ache in the cold. My shoulder clicks when I reach too high, and I've learned not to waste energy on anger unless anger has a purpose. But there are a few things in life a man does not let slide. You don't threaten his family, you don't touch what his dead wife built, and you do not try to steal the ground his bloodline is buried in. I bent down, picked up my toolbox again, and said, "You should leave." Denise actually blinked, surprised by how calm I sounded. "Excuse me? You heard me. Take your papers, get back in your car, and leave my property before you create a problem too large for you to solve." She gave a short laugh. "That sounds dangerously close to a threat." "It's not a threat, it's advice." Then I walked past her, up the porch steps, into the house, and shut the door. Not because I was afraid, because I already knew where the answer was. In the study, behind an old walnut cabinet, there was a locked drawer my father had shown me only twice in my life. Inside sat a sealed tube, thick cardboard, tied with a faded blue ribbon. I laid it on the dining table and untied it carefully. Inside were old documents, real old, yellowed, crisp at the edges, ink faded brown with age. The deed to my 5-acre homestead, the sale records for the surrounding farmland, and the clause my grandfather used to call the tripwire. He used to tap that paper with one rough finger and say, "If anybody ever gets greedy enough to come after this place, son, they won't just lose, they'll wish they'd never learned our name." At the time, I thought it was family legend. Turns out it was something much better. It was recorded, legal, and vicious. Before I tell you what was in that deed, drop a comment and tell me this. Have you ever dealt with an HOA, a landlord, or a local official who thought they could push you around just because they had a title? I read those stories all the time. I spread the papers flat and found the paragraph I was looking for. There it was, a covenant attached to the original transfer of the surrounding acreage, signed in 1919 by the developer who purchased hundreds of acres from my great-grandfather Elias Callahan. It stated that the Callahan homestead, 5 acres, specifically described by boundary markers, would remain forever excluded from any future municipal, neighborhood, community, residential, or homeowner authority created out of the sold land. That alone was enough to crush Denise's claim, but the next section was the reason my grandfather called it the tripwire. It said that if any future governing body attempted to force the homestead into membership, impose fees, place a lien, or seize property under color of community authority, then all common-use lands developed from the original acreage, roads, parks, clubhouse grounds, ponds, and recreation parcels would be subject to immediate reversionary litigation by the legal heirs of Elias Callahan. In plain English, if they came after my land, they risked losing theirs. I read it 3 times, then a 4th, and slowly, very slowly, I smiled, because Denise Porter hadn't just made a mistake, she had activated a landmine buried more than 100 years ago. For the next 6 weeks, I did absolutely nothing dramatic. That was the part she never expected. Most people, when pushed, either panic or explode. They argue, rant, threaten, make emotional mistakes. I didn't do any of that. I documented. Every notice they taped to my gate, I photographed. Every envelope they mailed, I scanned. Every violation went into a binder. Untrimmed hedges, visible utility trailer, unapproved gravel, improper fence material, non-approved garden structures. Even my wife's hand-painted bench got cited as decor inconsistent with community standards. That one almost made me laugh. The bench had been sitting there longer than half the homeowners in Oak Hollow were alive. And every single time I responded the same way, formally, briefly, by certified mail. This property is not subject to the jurisdiction of Oak Hollow HOA. Any further attempt to levy fines or enter the premises without lawful court authority will be treated as harassment and trespass. No emotion, no explanation, no mention of the tripwire clause. Not yet. You don't show your whole hand while the other side is still making bigger mistakes. And Denise kept making them. She escalated from letters to threats, from threats to final demands, from final demands to contractor visits. One landscaping company came out and left after I met them at the gate with a copy of my deed and a camera in my hand. A tree service truck showed up the next week to remove what Denise had listed as hazardous overgrowth near the back fence. I informed them that if they touched a single branch, I'd sue them personally. They left too. And then Denise did something so reckless that changed everything. She sent a tow company for the Chevy. The truck arrived just after sunrise. I was on the porch with coffee when I heard the diesel engine. A flatbed rolled up the drive like it belonged there. The driver hopped out, glanced at the pickup, then at the work order in his hand. "You Thomas Callahan?" "I am. Got an order from Oak Hollow to impound that vehicle." I set my mug down. You got a court order? No, sir, just the authorization. Then you got two choices. You can reverse that truck off my property now, or you can explain to the sheriff why you attempted theft for an HOA that has no jurisdiction here. He froze. Right then, Denise's golf cart came buzzing up the drive like she was arriving to watch a performance. She stepped out, smiling, arms folded. "Go ahead," she told the driver. "He's bluffing." I pulled out my phone and called the sheriff's department on speaker. The driver went pale, and Denise, for the first time, looked uncertain. If you're still with me here, hit like on this video, because people like Denise only understand consequences, and trust me, hers were coming fast. 2 deputies showed up about 12 minutes later. One was young, the other was Sergeant Hollis, a man I'd known for years through the county veterans breakfast. He took one look at the scene, the tow truck on my gravel, Denise and